Hi, it's Bobby from Bobby's Baking Blog, and I'm here to show you how to do these little Christmas trees. They're so much fun, and they're actually quite easy. So let's get started. Alright, so what we need is, I'm using a cornet with a PME ST51 and two different color greens. I'm using a Holly Green by Sugar Flare, and I am using a Spruce Green by Sugar Flare. And what you want to do is you just want to pipe your leaf onto your cone, and you want it to come down. You want to start a little bit higher than that first one that I did, so that it doesn't break when you sit it down like this. And I am just doing constant pressure like you would if you were doing a border with your leaf or anything else, releasing and pulling out. This is a great thing to do with the kids during this holiday time while they're home. Just get some ice cream cones, make up a batch of royal icing, color it, and have a good time decorating your trees. These are actually for another project that Sydney and I are working on, but you could use them for just about anything. So rather than you watch me pipe this entire tree, or a cone to a tree, I will come back and show you what it looks like halfway through, and then show you how to finish the top. So as you can see, I'm still piping, and I wanted to explain a couple of things. On the other trees that I showed you, I had two different colors and they were much lighter, but I realized later on after looking at some pine trees that actually pine trees are quite darker, so that's why this one's darker. You don't want, the other thing I want to explain is that you don't want your leaves to be very long. You kind of want to make them just short. So what you want to do is pipe till you get a nice leaf size and pull it out so that you have your vein in there, but it's not really long, because if it's too long it'll start flopping down onto the other parts. The other thing that you can do that I have done is you can turn it upside down, and depending on how fast you can get 2 rows in, or just one if you feel more comfortable with that. So I'll turn my cone upside down, do the exact same piping, turn it back right side up, take my little scribing tool and just nudge it down a tad. So that way I don't have to run into the next leaf, and I have room to pipe those pretty little red and silver balls that I piped on there. But, I mean, you can pipe it right side up. You can pipe it any way you want. I just found through doing it that it was easier, and it gave me something to grip onto the bottom of the cone here rather than pushing it down. Now as we get towards the top, I start moving my little pad that I'm working on here, or my mat, so that way I have something to touch and I'm not breaking, because as you can tell, these bottom ones are crusted over. They're not dry, but they're crusted over. You also do not want to add your balls until you have a nice crusty leaves going on, because the last thing you want to do is weigh them down. Those balls are going to be on the very oh, that's my oven, are going to be on the very outside of the leaves, and if you start piping the balls on them prior to them having enough dryness to them, they'll just break right off, or it'll become a goopy mess, because you're going to be using a different consistency. The consistency I'm using for these leaves is an off peak, so I'm using a pretty firm consistency to pipe these. I filled my bag about a third, maybe a tad more than a third of the way up when I first filled it, and that gave me enough room on that bag that I didn't have to worry about it being too hard for my hand. So as you can see, we're kind of filling out here. Our tree is filling out really nice. It's looking more like a tree than it is an ice cream cone. And I'll see you back when I get towards the top. Well, I'm back, and I'm still piping. Actually, it's only really taking me maybe, I think I've been piping for 10 minutes, actually. So it doesn't really take that long. It just would be boring for you guys to sit there and watch me. And I will go ahead and use the tip of this cone for as long as I can before I start turning my, oh, my tip is a little dirty there, hang on. Before start working with the mat and letting it move. No, we're still having a little bit of technical royal icing difficulties there. Okay. Let me just check it out here. See if it'll release. Alright, we're good. If you find that you don't like a leaf, for the most part it really isn't going to show, but if you absolutely have to remove the leaf, you can do it with your scribing tool and just pick it up like you would with any other royal icing work that you're doing. Remove it and pipe over it, over the area that it was at. When I first started looking at this, I wasn't sure how much space to leave in between the lines that are going up. So I just looked at our Christmas tree, and pine trees show the bark in between, so you don't want to go too tight, you don't want to make it too heavy. Especially if you're going to be putting this on a cake. And it looks like the two colors, I put a color on the back side of my cornet, so where the line is, and I put the other color on the front side. And it looks like these two kind of married and made a different color rather than give me that two-tone color that I had in the other. I can see a little bit of it, but not as much as I did on the other one. Also, the other thing I wanted to tell you, when using a leaf piping tip, especially the one that's one size smaller, sometimes it can be hard to tell which way the leaf goes. So you want to make sure that the blade is down like this, so that your V is facing you, or the back of the V is facing you. And on this one, it's fairly easy because it's a bigger tip. And this would be, I believe, a 352 on a Wilton. A Sedio, it would be 352 as well. And those would work just fine. I think everybody already knows that I'm pretty partial to the PME and the Bechamels. So that's what I'm using here, but the PME would work just fine. It would give you a beautiful vein. And when I talk about the vein, it's the line that you can see in each leaf. So as you can see, we're getting close up to that top there. I just think this would be a great project. Like I said, like if your kids are off for school break, little kids, big kids too, I mean, Sydney and I are doing this together. She's definitely not a little kid anymore. But I just think it'd be a great project to work with them on, because it's one of those things that is gratifying right away. You can see your work as soon as you're finished. A child can feel gratified. You can sit there with them and do it. And if you don't have a kid, it would be a great thing to do with a friend or yourself. I would also like to mention, this has absolutely nothing to do with what we're doing, but I feel like I have to mention this because it was yesterday. My grandmother turned 100 yesterday. So kudos to her. And actually these trees are a project that are gonna be for her birthday cake. There's a party on Saturday. So, happy birthday, Grandma. She's my inspiration to anything artistic that I do. She was into art, or she is into art. She's an unbelievable artist. She works mostly with porcelain, but she's an amazing woman. Alright, I didn't mean to bore you, got a little sentimental there. My grandma's in Chicago, so it's sometimes hard, but I just wanted to mention it was her birthday, and that she is 100. Alright, so we're up at the top, and as you can see that I am just using the mat to turn my tree. I am going to be putting some sort of either snowflake or star or something up at the top. So I might just put 1 or 2 leaves up here, but I do want to leave a little bit, only if it'll let me. I do want to leave a little bit of room for that. Hi, it's Bobby, and we're back. Our Christmas tree, the leaves have gotten hard enough to pipe our bead consistency, and I'm going to pipe some red and white beads, or balls, let's say, on our tree. And what that means, I'm going to let me get this guy in here. A bead consistency for me is when you pipe a well-rounded bead and the point goes back on in on itself, and it just looks like a nice little ball. So that on the tree, let me pipe one that you can see. You're going to want to pipe on the outside leaves so that you're piping it and it goes down. So it looks like a real Christmas ornamental bead. And you're going to want to keep, I do my bead consistency, I don't like how he's falling a little bit. I do my bead consistency in a plastic piping bag because I don't use a tip. I'll just cut it to the size that I need and go from there. So I'm going to pipe a few and then show them to you as I go. You want to make sure that your tree has dried enough to be able to handle the beads without them melting into your royal icing. So if your leaves are still too wet, just wait a few more minutes, and you can tell by touching them, or you could pipe one that is in the back that maybe someone won't see. And then just however you want them to lay out, put them, oh no, that didn't turn out, but that's okay. I'm going to show you what to do. I'm going to take my scriber while he's still fairly wet, and he's going to be fairly wet because of the consistency, and just take that off. Go back exactly where I was because there is a little teeny red mark, and just repipe that bead. And you can't even tell I had to remove him. So that I can kind of give you an idea of what's going on, I'm going to go ahead and add my white. The other thing that I will do that I have found works out pretty well is if I make up, I had done some other trees as you saw that I had brought in. If I make up a batch of, I guess it would be more of a run out consistency because you're talking about, got a little clogged. You're talking about a 10-second consistency, so you're looking for just about that same consistency. So you would do the white exactly the same. But what I have found is a lot of times I'll make, especially for these little trees, I found that I made more than I actually needed. And because I knew I was going to be doing this video for all of you, I went ahead and just let my icing go back up, kind of scooshed it back up with my fingers, bent it over, and took a piece of masking tape, closed it, and put it in the refrigerator. Brought it out about a half an hour before I needed to use it. Check it, make sure that it hasn't separated on you. Generally, if it's pretty fresh and you've just done it, you'll be fine. So you don't even have to worry about remaking the consistency up. I promise you this is the same one that I did about 5 hours ago. I made this batch up and just taped it in its bag. I also left on the Wilton tie on the other side so that I didn't have to worry about it getting too tight. But all you want to do is just add your little decorative ornamental balls in. These white ones I'm going to color silver once my royal icing dries to a nice crusted point. And I will show you that when we come back. I'll do a couple more red just so you can see the contrast in the colors. I'm kind of piping on the side here, so I'm hoping that this one is going to agree here and use it. Let me take him off and re-show you. But pretty much the idea is, I mean, you can decorate it any way you want. You could use dragées if you wanted to, but I thought making it completely out of royal icing would just be so much more intriguing. So, and I wanted to show you how you could do it completely with royal icing and not having to find some, if you don't have any dragées and they don't have the color you want at the store. And if you want to do multicolors and you didn't have the food paste color that you wanted, you can just use a little bit of Everclear and petal dust. And I will show you how I'm going to do that when I color my white balls, or my white ornaments. So I will see you back here in a few. Hi, it's Bobby, and we're ready to paint our white balls. The red ones I will leave red. And if you want to leave them white, that looks great, but I love this edible shimmer silver by Blossom Sugar Art. And so I'm just mixing it with a little bit of Everclear. And I have a palette. So because it's royal icing, you want to work a little bit on the thicker side. The Everclear, it dries so fast that it's not going to hurt your royal icing in any way. And I just think that little bit of silver shimmer, or you could do gold if you like gold, or you could do gold and silver for your tree. But it completely makes a difference. It just adds that little holiday touch. So I will finish painting these. Like I said, you want your consistency to be more on the thick side for your silver, or for your petal dust, whatever color you decide to go with. If you want to do like a blue and a white, or a blue and a silver, whatever you want to go with. If you're going to be using any type of petal dust, you want to be a little bit on the thicker side, and you want to use a small brush, maybe a 0, or I think this one is a 10, and just go in and paint your little balls. So I will finish mine, and when we're all done, I'll show you how it looks. So the tree is done, and I've painted the balls. As you can see, like I said, I have a two-tone color going on. It's not as drastic as this one, but it's a little bit more in color for the season. So, and this one's fine too. If you like this color, it's gooseberry and moss green. So either one is fine. And like I said, if you want to leave your balls, your Christmas balls white, that would be fine. Or painting them just gives that extra touch. Thank you, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial.